What is up, good people? Jungle Inc. here, hope you're doing well. The AMM drama with the XRP Ledger continued today. A lot of infighting, we'll go over it. But it looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel. This problem has been solved. We'll break it down. So, as most of you know, a minor bug was found, and there was some dispute on how we should continue. On Ledger, saying, well, if anyone is still voting to accept this, they are doing so with full knowledge. They are voting in a bugged XRP Ledger software with a known and tested fix. A responsible author would or should pull it and fix it rather than relying on a lack of rejections to see it enabled. David Schwartz retorting, it is known how to avoid the bug and the consequences are minor. So in his opinion, not a big deal. Let's get this thing done. Now, Chris Thompson retorted, can you guarantee that you can fix this if it passes, like with absolute certainty? And then he tacked on the end of that discussion, find another way to pay your bills in the meantime, insinuating Ripple needs this to go through so they can use AMMs to sell XRP. There's some truth to that. They want this functionality for their business operations, but that was probably a little over the line for a public setting. You're getting a little too snippety here. And David Schwartz responded, that's nonsense. If the bug's a big deal, just don't pass the thing. And if the community as a whole agrees that, hey, this isn't something to worry about, then it'll go through. Like, this is what we have voting for. You know, you see all of this drama going on. Look, it's a stressful situation. They want to get it done right. Typically, you'll see me on Twitter getting in there and stirring up problems. I've stayed out of this. Let the process take care of itself. That's why we have the voting mechanisms we do. And the very intelligent people figuring this out. Daniel's telling me right now, the fix is in. They already have it. And worst case scenario, might be another 14 days, and we should see the final release as of the 21st. So they got the problem fixed, this minor bug. It's, full speed ahead. A few more days isn't the end of the earth. We will have AMMs on the XRP Ledger. Ignore the drama. Ignore the infighting. Again, they're frustrated. They've been working hard to get this thing done as quickly as possible. But the most important thing is it gets done right. And that's why the system's set up as it is. Not a major deal. This sucker is almost home. And when you look at this issue, there's a fine balance here, right? We have Ripple's vision for XRP and the utility they need. And we have a broader ecosystem. And we want a flourishing ecosystem of builders and applications, but also at what cost? Because again, some people, they might like smart contracts, right? And for them, they don't really care about the speed and the cost, and they just want the ability, the programmability of smart contracts to build all sorts of feature sets. But what if that ultimately robs XRP of its speed, its cost effectiveness, its ability to facilitate payments? Well, you're harming one of the biggest builders in all of crypto, and really XRP's core capability, not just for Ripple, but for anyone using it to be able to send a payment for money to flow like information, and you don't want to do it. So you always have to, keep in mind this balancing act of, yes, you want a rich ecosystem of building, but you also have to keep in mind you have this behemoth and Ripple that's trying to conquer payments, and really XRP's core mission to be a peer-to-peer payment system without an intermediary. And for that, you need to retain certain attributes. I said it yesterday, we're going to fall somewhere between Bitcoin, more capable than that, but less capable than Ethereum for the purpose of keeping transactions fast and cheap. I still say beyond AMMs, you need to have a significant stablecoin. And I think they're getting ready to add that. That's why we see the clawback feature. Typically, UST, USDC, these stablecoin issuers, they want that clawback ability. I think they're paving the way for that. And it can't just be a stablecoin. It has to be a major one so you can get liquidity on exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken and international exchanges. It just makes everything work so much better. And an XRP Ledger with a world-class stablecoin, it really jumps to the head of the pack because it's reliable. There ain't no downtime on the ledger. It's fast. It's cheap. So you can imagine, hey, I'm going to send, USDC. Do I want to do that on the Ethereum chain and wait for that transaction to settle and pay high fees? Or do I want to zip it across there with the XRP Ledger? You see Tron having a ton of success with this. Once they added on those stablecoins, if I'm going to trust one blockchain over the other with my value, I would trust it on the XRP Ledger any day of the week over Tron. Again, this could be a massive advancement for this chain. Now, of course, and I don't think the timing is any coincidence as we start moving into AMMs and really getting more action on the decentralized exchange, here comes the SEC. We've covered this a little bit here, but they're looking at possibly having decentralized exchanges and AMM pools have to register if they're over $50 million. And, this is silly. How the hell is code going to register? We need Congress to step up here and write some new laws. And we're also getting calls from Janet Yellen. We'll talk about this further, where she's saying we need new laws. These old and antiquated laws aren't good enough. So I think we're going to get that. Stablecoins will be addressed. Eventually, they're going to have to roll off to these other things like decentralized exchanges and AMMs and things like this. I'm not saying it should be just a free-for-all Wild Wild West, but at the same time, if we're trading on a decentralized exchange commodities, then what the hell are we, registering with the SEC for? They're not going to stop until government steps in and puts an end to it and writes clear guidelines here. It's the only way. Other than that, they're going to keep trying to cut us off at every pass. And yeah, we can have 3-year court battles to win. That's not efficient. Now, one of the big areas of crypto is going to be tokenizing of value. And I think one of the first areas we're going to see disrupted is the tokenization of securities. When we have more efficient, security markets here, probably longer trading hours, if not around the clock like crypto, more so than what we see now, and faster settlement times, things of this nature. And what do you know? What is one of the best blockchains from its base capability for tokenizing value? Well, it's the XRP Ledger. It was designed with the idea that you can take anything of value, throw it on there, and trade it, send the value, things of this nature. It's going to be a beast in the area of tokenizing of real-world assets. Ripple recognizes that. This is one of the areas they're moving into, and I bet others do as well. This is perfectly suited for that use case. Well ahead of its time in 2012, but now tokenizing real-world assets is going to be right in the wheelhouse of one of the hottest topics in crypto as we go forward. I've said right now, payments aren't really where it's at. It's not where investors are trying to go, but there's a lot of different areas where we can have success, where XRP Ledger can excel at very hot button topics. And tokenizing real world assets, you don't need smart contract capability. There's still a lot you can do with the XRP Ledger. I want to circle back to that Spaces David was in, where he said the level of adoption isn't up to what they expected. A lot of people taking that as Ripple is failing. And, I think David's just being honest here. One of the XRP Ledger's greatest weaknesses is that we all expect it to just take over the world today, all the payments running through it. But when you compare it to its contemporaries, it's quite successful. And we've seen quite a bit of adoption. And I think it will continue to lead in a lot of different areas. Just because by now we expected major banks to actually use this for the majority of their payments, doesn't mean when you compare XRP to another blockchain, it ain't leading the way in a lot of important and valuable areas of blockchain. Remember that. Just because you expect it to dominate everywhere, you have to compare it to how many banks are using other blockchains, things of this nature. Now, this was a really interesting article. It's titled Prometheum, the only U.S. registered crypto platform picks Ether as its first product. What a shady company this is, and how did they become the first U.S. registered company? The much debated crypto broker says it's poised to start its SEC compliant custody with Ethereum. And so my first reaction to this was Hinman strikes again, right? Like, he paved the way for Ethereum, and now the first U.S. registered crypto platform is going to trade, guess what? Not Bitcoin, not XRP, but Ethereum. Look at the damage that speech of his did. And they look to go live with this platform soon, but I did see another article that said, you know what? The purpose of this may not be what you think. It may not be to actually roll out their platform and start trading. Like any good puppet, it may be to force the SEC's hand to declare Ethereum a security. Could that be? Does Gary Gensler want to say out loud what he hasn't been able to, that he believes Ethereum is a security for one reason or the other? Yeah, I think he wants to say it. I think he wants to take that action. Might this be something that forces his hand where he has to make that claim? And to be clear, I don't think Ethereum's a security, but I believe Gary Gensler wants to make some twisted argument that it is. And why would they not lead with Bitcoin? That would be the sensible first product. It's very strange they are leading with their first product with Ethereum. Might they be acting as some conduit for the SEC to take an action here? We'll find out. Quoting from the article, Prometheum's choice of Ethereum as its opening asset could come with its own complications. Unlike Bitcoin, where the SEC has openly declared it isn't a security and is therefore none of the agency's business, the Commission has been more coy about whether Ethereum, among other digital tokens, should be considered a security. The CEO of that company looks like Dracula's brother. Guy gives me the creeps, and Gary Gensler's no better. Who knows what they got cooked up here? We'll see it play out. Now, as we came into this year, I told you one of my big concerns, well, there's really two, commercial real estate and banking. And they're connected, and they each have their own problems. We see Bloomberg is reporting U.S. commercial real estate contagion is now moving to Europe. Axios, German bank, warns of greatest real estate crisis since the financial crisis as contagion spreads. Loans are beginning to sour as rising interest and vacancy rates erode value of office towers. It's a big problem. And it's not just bad loans. It's like you could rework loans, fine. But the issue is the vacancies. That ain't coming back ever. And you're going to have to go in here and really reimagine a lot of this real estate space and what you're going to do with it. It's probably going to take not just investors, but government intervention. When you look at the scale of this, it's huge. Society has changed forever, especially as we move to a digital era where you don't need this physical footprint. It's a big problem. It's a ticking time bomb. We have a lot of people that are going to have to refinance here, rework those loans. And a lot of them are saying, this just doesn't make sense. Here's your keys. You deal with it. And I think that's just going to pick up the pace. Troubles in the U.S. commercial market have already started to hit banks in New York, Japan, and is moving to Europe this week, elevating fears about broader contagion. Current turmoil is being termed as the greatest real estate crisis since the last financial crisis. On Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is telling us she thinks this problem is manageable. Okay. And Canada's bank regulator also says that commercial real estate loan losses are a manageable risk. Appraisal values, though, seem way too high. They're not taking in all of these factors, and they're doing so on purpose. And lenders that base their decisions on these elevated appraisals have greater odds of taking impairment, and some could face strain as a result. Things are much worse than they appear. These assets are wildly overvalued here, and we're not seeing the true financial shape of many institutions out there right now. This is a ticking time bomb that could blow up in our face. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna. I'm not saying we're going back to 2009 or anything like that, but no, it's a risk, a big one. And it's both real estate and banking, of course, intertwined here. It could be a big issue as we go forward. The next article from Forbes, speaking about the Federal Reserve, Powell says the quiet part out loud. And it goes on to say he is anticipating 3 rate reductions this year, while the market hopes for at least 5. I don't know if any of it's going to be enough. A soft landing is far too optimistic. Gently touching down this multi-trillion-dollar stimulus package without ramifications sure seems impossible. I agree with this author here at Forbes. There are going to be massive ramifications for decades, what we saw there. In comparison, 2009, the American Recovery Act was touted as the biggest stimulus, at least in the post-war era, and that was 5% of GDP. What we just did in 2020 and 2021, that was 20% and 22% of GDP, respectively. We've never seen anything like this. And we're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg here in terms of consequences from that. There's going to be a hell of a price to pay. Understand that. And while all this is going along, what do we see in the stock market? The S&P 500, this article from Axios, the S&P 500 top stocks haven't been this concentrated in 50 years. Giant companies now dominate the stock market in a way we haven't seen in more than 50 years, where all-time highs, just massive, massive valuations. And the question is this: from here, where are we headed? Are we going on some epic bull run to somehow even higher heights? Or is there problems on the horizon? And when they're talking about, how top heavy everything is, We just saw Meta soar 20% in a single day, creating $200 billion in market value. For context, that's the entire value of McDonald's Corporation. Just in one day, boom. It's troublesome when you are creating in a singular day a whole McDonald's. Like the whole company, boom, just over a few hours. Now, some of this is the new world. We understand this is going to continue to some extent. You know, the digital era is upon us. The era of giant tech companies that are pretty much taking over everything, every industry that they want. They play this game on a different level, and that's going to continue. But it doesn't mean, with everything else going around, we can't be cruising for a bruising. If it happens, of course, we'll see cryptocurrency values affected. When people are losing their job, they're going to be selling their crypto. They got to eat, right? Some of the first things that go is crypto. And while that drop may be sharp, and I'm not Nostradamus, I don't know if this happens, I think when you look at valuations, crypto, in a lot of ways, is undervalued, and I think the recovery will be that much more sharp than you see for real estate and really equities as well. Look, we live in clown world. I don't know when the music stops. It could keep roaring for quite some time. I stay invested in quality assets, but understand it could get nasty in the short term. But if it does, I look for a quick recovery from crypto because it's a hedge against money printing, which is a big problem, and also geopolitical risk, as well as the value of the utility, the problems you're solving. Crypto and blockchain is going to be in big demand, along with AI. And so if you stay invested in that wheelhouse, the recovery will be quite sharp. And I think we have an amazing run in front of us no matter what we encounter. But remember, you got to be built for bear. Be ready to weather the storm. Let me know what you think down below. And as always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.